Welcome back to Lawyers IQ, your trusted source for deep dives into high-profile legal battles. Today, we're shifting our focus in the Karen Read retrial to a pivotal battleground, the courtroom showdown over accident reconstruction expert testimony. This highly technical and often complex area of evidence is absolutely critical to the prosecution's case, which alleges that Karen Read's SUV was the instrument of John O'Keefe's death. The defense, however, has launched a methodical and vigorous challenge to the prosecution's accident expert, attempting to dismantle the very foundation of their theory. Understanding the nuances of this expert testimony and the defense's strategy is paramount to grasping the true implications for the outcome of this trial. Let's unravel what this challenge means and its potential ripple effects. 2. Set the stage. Let's quickly recap why accident reconstruction is so vital here. The prosecution's core theory is that Karen Read, in her Lexus SUV, struck John O'Keefe, causing the fatal injuries that led to his death. To prove this, they rely heavily on forensic evidence and expert analysis to establish a causal link between the vehicle, Read's actions, and O'Keefe's ultimate demise. This includes analyzing vehicle damage, the nature of O'Keefe's injuries, and the physical scene. The accident reconstruction expert is tasked with presenting scientific conclusions derived from this data, effectively painting a picture for the jury of how the alleged collision occurred. Their testimony is designed to provide a compelling scientific narrative that supports the prosecution's version of events and establishes Read's culpability. The prosecution brought forth an accident reconstruction expert to present their findings, typically involving detailed calculations and simulations. This expert's testimony aimed to explain how the damage to Read's SUV, particularly the broken taillight, was consistent with striking a pedestrian like John O'Keefe. They likely discussed impact points, estimated vehicle speed at the time of impact, and correlated the pattern of O'Keefe's injuries with the alleged mechanism of the collision. Their analysis would have included the trajectory of O'Keefe's body after the alleged impact and where debris from the vehicle, such as plastic fragments from the taillight, were found. The expert's role is to provide a specialized opinion that assists the jury in understanding complex technical information that is outside the scope of common knowledge. Their testimony is crucial because it provides the scientific underpinning for the prosecution's narrative, attempting to connect the physical evidence directly to Read's actions as the cause of O'Keefe's death. They might have used diagrams, 3D models, or even animated recreations to illustrate their findings, making the technical details more accessible to the jury. However, the defense's approach to the cross-examination of this accident expert has been nothing short of a strategic masterclass, designed to chip away at the expert's credibility and the reliability of their conclusions. Their strategy is multifaceted. Firstly, they have meticulously questioned the methodology employed by the prosecution's expert, scrutinizing the data points used, the assumptions made in their calculations, and the very scientific models applied. For instance, did the expert account for all environmental factors, like the precise type and depth of snow, the exact temperature or irregularities in the terrain? Were all potential variables considered in their simulations? The defense lawyers are expertly trained to find any gaps or leaps in logic in an expert's reasoning. Secondly, the defense has skillfully introduced alternative interpretations of the very same data presented by the prosecution. This isn't about outright dismissing the data, but about showing that the data could support a different conclusion, or that the expert's interpretation is merely one possible interpretation, not the only one. They might suggest that certain pieces of evidence, like a specific injury pattern or a particular piece of vehicle damage, could equally be consistent with a different scenario, such as a fall or an altercation. Thirdly, the defense has highlighted the inherent limitations of accident reconstruction science itself, or the specific limitations of the prosecution's expert's analysis. No scientific model is perfect, and expert testimony is, by its nature, an opinion based on the best available data and accepted methodologies. The defense will expose any instances where the expert had to make assumptions due to missing data, or where the science itself is not absolutely definitive. This includes probing the precision of measurements, the calibration of equipment, and the margin of error in their calculations. They might ask whether the expert considered all possible forces that could have acted upon O'Keefe's body. Furthermore, the defense has been known to bring in, or at least heavily reference, their own consulting experts, who can provide counter-opinions or highlight flaws in the opposing expert's work. This doesn't necessarily mean putting their own expert on the stand, but using their expert's insights to formulate devastating cross-examination questions that expose weaknesses in the prosecution's experts' conclusions. The core aim is to demonstrate that the prosecution's experts' conclusions are not as definitive or irrefutable as they appear, thereby injecting reasonable doubt into the minds of the jurors. Let's delve into some specific points of challenge that have emerged during the cross-examination. The defense has vigorously questioned the precise correlation between the alleged damage to Reed's vehicle, particularly the broken taillight, and the nature of John O'Keefe's injuries. They might argue that certain injuries on O'Keefe's body are inconsistent with a specific point of impact or type of damage on the SUV, or that the vehicle damage itself could have occurred from something other than striking O'Keefe. For example, could the taillight have been broken prior to the incident or by hitting something else? They've also probed the accuracy of speed calculations or impact force estimations, suggesting that the force attributed to the alleged collision might not align with the severity or type of injury sustained, or that the experts' methods for calculating such forces are flawed. The exact position of O'Keefe's body when found and its relation to vehicle debris has also been a contentious point. The defense might suggest that the debris field doesn't perfectly match the prosecution's impact theory, or that O'Keefe's final resting place is inconsistent with a typical vehicle-pedestrian collision trajectory. Environmental factors also provide fertile ground for defense challenges. The presence of snow, ice, and extreme cold on the night in question introduces complexities that can affect skid marks, body movement, and the integrity of evidence. The defense will ask if these environmental variables were adequately accounted for in the experts' models. Furthermore, they may highlight a perceived lack of certain expected evidence, such as extensive blood splatter, where a fatal car strike might be expected, or the distribution of specific types of debris. This is a subtle but powerful way to imply that the evidence, when fully scrutinized, doesn't tell the complete story the prosecution wants it to. Crucially, the defense is not necessarily arguing that a collision didn't happen, but rather challenging the conclusion that the vehicle necessarily caused the fatal injuries, as alleged by the prosecution. They are aiming to show that the expert's testimony, while sophisticated, cannot definitively rule out other possibilities for O'Keefe's injuries and death, thereby creating a pathway for reasonable doubt. The impact of a successful challenge to the accident expert on the prosecution's case cannot be overstated. If the defense manages to significantly undermine the credibility or the definitive nature of the accident reconstruction testimony, it severely weakens the prosecution's overall argument by breaking a crucial link in their causal chain. The prosecution needs to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Reed's actions with her vehicle directly caused O'Keefe's death. If the scientific evidence meant to establish that link becomes shaky, then the jury might find it difficult to accept that crucial element of the prosecution's theory. It forces the jury to question whether the evidence truly supports the conclusion that O'Keefe's fatal injuries were a direct result of being struck by Reed's SUV, as opposed to some other event. This doesn't mean the prosecution's case crumbles entirely, but it certainly makes their path to conviction far more arduous, particularly if they rely heavily on this expert testimony to bridge the gap between eyewitness accounts and medical findings. Conversely, this challenge strategically reinforces the defense's alternative narratives. By demonstrating that the vehicle strike theory is not as scientifically airtight as the prosecution claims, the defense creates more room for their own theories to gain traction. For instance, if the expert cannot definitively link specific injuries to a vehicle impact, it lends more credence to the defense's suggestion that O'Keefe's injuries could have been sustained inside the house, perhaps during an altercation and that he was subsequently left outside. It opens the door for the jury to consider other possibilities, which is precisely what the defense needs to do to establish reasonable doubt. The less certain the jury is about the scientific cause of death via vehicle impact, the more plausible other explanations become, thereby benefiting the defense. The legal implications of conflicting expert testimony are profound, and the jury's role in evaluating it is critical. Expert witnesses are allowed to present opinions because they possess specialized knowledge that assists the jury in understanding complex facts. However, their opinions are not automatically accepted as absolute truth. The jury is ultimately the arbiter of fact and must weigh the credibility of all witnesses, including experts. When presented with conflicting expert opinions, or when one expert's testimony is effectively dismantled on cross-examination, the jury must decide which expert, if any, is more credible and whose methodology and conclusions are more reliable. This often comes down to assessing not just the scientific content, but also the expert's demeanor, their ability to explain complex concepts clearly, and their responsiveness to challenging questions. The presence of strong challenges to an expert's testimony can be a powerful tool for generating reasonable doubt, the cornerstone of criminal law. If the jury, after hearing the defense's cross-examination, is left with a genuine and substantial doubt about whether O'Keefe's injuries were definitively caused by Reed's vehicle as presented by the prosecution's expert, then that doubt must lead to an acquittal on the most serious charges. It's a testament to the adversarial system that scientific evidence, no matter how complex, must withstand rigorous scrutiny in open court. In conclusion, the defense's robust challenge to the accident reconstruction expert in the Karen Reed retrial represents a critical inflection point in the proceedings. By meticulously dissecting the expert's methodology, assumptions, and conclusions, the defense aims to undermine the very scientific basis of the prosecution's central theory of how John O'Keefe died. This isn't just about discrediting a single witness. It's about potentially creating a significant chasm in the prosecution's narrative of causality, making it harder for them to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. The outcome of this battle of experts could profoundly influence how the jury perceives the physical evidence and, ultimately, Karen Reed's culpability. It underscores the immense importance of technical evidence and the art of cross-examination in modern criminal trials. Thank you for joining us on Lawyers IQ for this in-depth breakdown. We hope this analysis has shed light on the complex interplay of expert testimony and defense strategy in the Karen Reed retrial. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found this video insightful. Subscribe to Lawyers IQ for more expert legal commentary, incisive case breakdowns, and ongoing trial updates. Share this video with anyone following the Karen Reed trial and help spread informed legal analysis. What are your thoughts on the defense's challenges to the accident expert? Do you think they've successfully created reasonable doubt regarding the vehicle impact theory? Let us know your insights and questions in the comments below. We value your engagement and professional discussions. Until next time, stay informed and stay legally savvy.